What is up, people? Van from the VaniverseGaming channel here, bringing you another video on Solasta Crown the Magister. Today's video, we're going to cover all of the subclasses you can choose for the 9 different classes in Solasta Crown the Magister. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of subclasses, so this is going to be a long video, but we're going to actually just go in alphabetical order. We're going to start with Barbarian, we're going to end with Wizard, and so if you want to go to the different classes you want, I'm going in alphabetical order so you can just fast forward to what you want to see. Now we're going to rank the subclasses from best to worst, and then I'm going to give you a little background about why I chose that, and I'm sure that you guys are going to have difference of opinion, so leave that in the comments below. Now before we get started, there are little yellow circles on the Barbarian and Druid. Those are the Primal Calling DLC. So if you do not see Barbarian or Druid on your list in Solasta, that's because you didn't purchase the DLC and you don't have access to those classes. Now the Sorcerer has a purple one on, but that's not a big deal. That's a non-paid DLC, so you should have the Sorcerer class available to you. Now also, once we get into the classes, every class has a subclass that is also part of a DLC called the Lost Valley DLC. So if we get into a particular class like the Barbarian, and you do not see all the subclasses available, that's because you need to pick up the Lost Valley DLC. Now with all that out of the way, let's get started with our friend the Barbarian. Now, the Barbarian is one of those classes that gets its subclass at level 3, which is pretty standard, but you'll see later that there are some classes that get their subclasses sooner, level 1 or level 2. Now, there are 4 subclasses available for the Barbarian if you own the Lost Valley DLC: Berserker, Magebane, Stone, and Claw. Now the Berserker is actually a subclass from the standard rules or reference document for 5th edition. You will see that every class but one in Solasta has a subclass from that rule set, but it doesn't identically match because they might make some liberties and make some changes. And you'll notice that you don't see any subclasses from Tasha's or Player's Handbook or any of that because the people who made Solasta don't own the licenses or haven't purchased a license, so they can't use any of the content where Baldur's Gate 3 can do that. So with all that being said, let's rank these subclasses from first to last. Coming in at number 1 is going to be the Path of the Berserker. Now a lot of you are going to be like, wow, that's like one of the worst subclasses in 5th edition SRD. However, this version is better. When you go into a Frenzied Rage in Solasta, you actually have a chance of succeeding and not gaining a level of exhaustion after your rage ends. The DC starts at 10, it goes to 15, it goes to 20, and you can continue to roll. Now, on a short or long rest, you actually get to reset the DC, so you're more likely to not get exhausted or get less levels of exhaustion, so it makes this a much better ability to use. So you're basically gaining an extra attack as a bonus action, and you're really not giving up as much as you would in the SRD. And then of course at level 6 you can't be charmed or frightened while raging. This will actually come into play in some of the encounters, and then at the end you can see a frightened creature, blah blah blah, not a big deal. So the main reason why this is number 1 subclass is Frenzied Rage. Then coming at number 2, Stone and Magebane could go either way. I'm going to go with the Path of Stone, and the reason I'm going with the Path of Stone is while you're raging, you gain temporary hit points equal to twice your proficiency bonus. So proficiency bonus in Solasta is from 2 to 4 because you go up to level 12. So you can get anywhere from 4 to 8 temporary hit points at the end of every turn. So if you think about it, gaining 4 to 8 temporary hit points every turn, and let's just say it takes 10 turns or whatever to complete an entire combat, that's 40 to 80 hit points that you're saving on top of your raging where you take half damage on most things. And so you can see how this is going to make you very, very tanky. Then at level 6, you can use your Constitution saving throw for any saving throw. This is just amazing that you can just use Con to save against everything. It's such a huge benefit at level 6. And then level 10, you get a nice Rock Solid where you gain up to 4 AC depending on what is surrounding you. So 1 AC for every hostile creature around you with a max of 4. So if this is going to be your tank and you're kind of in the middle of the fray and stuff's just coming all around you, you get an increase to your AC. So if you imagine you put 20 into your Con, 20 into your Dex, and then you get this, I mean, you can have upwards of 24 AC without any feats or anything like that. That is probably why this comes in at number 2. People can argue that this would be number 1. Coming at number 3 is going to be the Path of the Magebane, and this is great against casters, right? So at level 3 you get a War Cry, so whenever a spell or magic attack is used against you, you take damage, then you get to unleash this War Cry and do an AoE of 1d6 plus your con modifier to all enemies within 6 cells. It's psychic damage and it's a reaction, so this could actually do very well for you if you are going to be up front and taking the brunt of the casters that you're fighting against. In addition, at level 6, while you're raging, you roll an additional weapon damage die when you're making successful melee attacks against creatures that can spellcast, so you're going to slice through them like warm butter. And then last, at level 10, you get advantage on saving throws against spells, which, come on, who doesn't want advantage on saving throws versus spells? Especially when they're casting Fireball and Lightning Bolt and all these other crazy spells at level 10. And then finally, the fourth and worst subclass in the Barbarian is going to be the Path of the Claw that came with the Lost Valley DLC. This, to me, feels like they're trying to do a little bit of a Dragonborn kind of meets a Sorcerer, Draconic Bloodline Sorcerer. So at level 3, you get to choose a Dragon type, and then once you choose that Dragon type, you gain +1 to your AC, and then you get resistance to the damage, whatever that Dragon does. Then at level 6, you get a bonus action breath weapon that resets, I think, on a long rest. And it can do upwards of half your level rounded up. So if you imagine if you're level 12, you can do upwards of 68 damage once per long rest. So it's almost like casting a fireball, I guess. So not a huge thing, but it's okay. And then at level 10, while raging, your melee weapon attacks do an additional 1d8 elemental damage. But this comes on really late at level 10. I mean, by level 10 or 11, the game's going to be over, maybe level 12, depending. So that's why this is the worst subclass in the bunch. All right, so moving on to the Cleric. Now, the Cleric is crazy because it has 10 different subclasses to choose from, and so we're going to kind of go through this pretty quickly. So number 1 on the list is going to be the Battle Cleric. The Battle Cleric has a really good set of spells, especially Haste and Fireball, Hold Monster. They got some really good spell choices. In addition, they can use martial weapons. As an action, they gain 3 temporary hit points per Cleric level, recovered after a long rest, which is just ridiculous. And then they can cast spells with a somatic component without a free hand. So you can use a sword and a shield or whatever to use your spell casting, which is pretty broken. Otherwise, you have to switch to like a ranged weapon or something not in your offhand. In addition to that, their Channel Divinity can add up to 1d6 damage and stun targets, and this continues to increase as you level up. And then you can see you get down to your Divine Intervention, etc. So if you're looking for a frontline Battle Cleric, this guy's great. You pick up Flawless Concentration, which is a feat that helps holding concentration, and then you pick up like heavy armor master, so you can wear heavy armor, and bada boom, bada bing, you probably have one of the strongest Cleric classes in Solasta Crown of the Magister. The strongest, in my opinion. Followed up by number 2, the Life Cleric. This is one that's from the standard rules document. I'm not going to go over this. It's just a strong class. They start out being able to wear heavy armor. When they cast healing spells, the target gains additional hit points. As they level up, when they cast healing spells, they gain health back themselves. It's just a really strong subclass. And then at level 8, they start getting some radiant damage on weapon attacks, which, you know, if you're wearing heavy armor, you could probably be up in the fray. And so, not great, but it's a nice added bonus. Coming in at number 3, we're going to do Cleric of the Law. This one's pretty good. You got great spells with Hold Person, Heroism, Shield, Counterspell, Lightning Bolt, Banishment. Other than that, the advantage on being shoved and blah blah is kind of silly. The Holy Redemption's a nice ability where a melee attack damages you. You can use your reaction to channel it and to do melee damage back, which is psychic. And then also at level 6, break the spellcaster's concentration. That's going to be huge. And then even level 8, restrain a creature and inflicting force damage every turn until they succeed. All really strong, which is why this one comes in at number 3 in my opinion. Number 4, we're going to go with the Sun, Cleric of the Sun. Very fire-based cleric, so you can see a lot of the spells, Burning Hands, Fairy Fire, Daylight, Fire Shield, Wall of Fire, Flame Strike, etc. Light is a bonus cantrip, and when you cast Sacred Flame, your target has disadvantage on the saving throw, which is really nice. You get down into some of the other things. Channel Divinity to engulf a visible enemy within 6 cells in Radiant Light, causing damage. And then it also causes the blind condition. get to level 6, and you can summon a Sphere of Sunlight, which affects light-sensitive creatures, and also you can use the Soothing Hand, heal an ally, and remove 1 detrimental condition. Both of these are really great at level 6. You're definitely going to be fighting creatures that are light-sensitive. And then similar to the Life Cleric, you get the Divine Strike at level 8. However, this Cleric, you're not getting a lot of the heavy armor and all that, so I don't know if you're going to be up in the fray, and so I don't know how much that really helps you. Okay, moving on to number 5. That's the Mischief Cleric. So this is the one that comes with a Lost Valley DLC. The spell choices here are pretty good with Blur and Invisibility, Slow, Greater Invisibility, Dominate Person. You get to, when you fail a saving throw, when you do not have disadvantage, you can use reaction to roll again, which is going to be helpful on some of the checks you're going to make. But then when you get into your Channel Divinity, this is pretty cool. When you hit a creature with a melee or range weapon attack, you can Channel Divinity to add 1d6 points of psychic damage and impose a random condition. Here's the crazy part. One of the random conditions that you can impose is Paralyze. So that means every melee hit on that creature is guaranteed a crit. That's just going to, if you can land one of these on like a boss mob, you are just going to wreck their face. And then you gain additional damage as you get higher up on this Channel Divinity Strike of Chaos. So really, really strong ability. And then at level 5, level 6, you start to see that it starts to get stronger. And then starting at level 8, you're extremely hard to corner. When a melee attack hits you, you can use a reaction to gain the benefit of dodging and disengage until the end of your turn. So all in all, I feel like this is a pretty darn strong class because of their Channel Divinity having that Paralyze, and then also the spell choices that they have, which is why it's number 5. Coming at number 6, we're going to go for the Oblivion Cleric. I don't really like a lot of their spells, to be quite honest. I don't think they're that strong. You get a bonus cantrip Chill Touch, which is always nice. And then you can cause pain within 6 cells. Enemies failing a wisdom saving throw gain 1d6 necrotic damage and are poisoned. And then also, while camping, reduce the chance of being attacked and prevent being surprised. That's actually very helpful at level 2. And it will really help you with some of the surprise attacks that can hurt you, especially if you're on some of the higher difficulties. And then from there, you gain 1d6 necrotic damage on your first attack of every turn. You can mark a creature so they can receive extra damage, almost like Hunter's Mark or, oh crap, what's the one for Warlock? Anyways, Hex. So that's why this one probably comes in on my list at number 6. And I forgot to mention, Clerics gain their subclasses at level 1 if you have not played D&D before. Going in at number 7, we're going to get to the different elements, and we're going to start with Lightning. Now, they all have the same spell choices, which are all really nice. You get Fly, Misty Step, Lightning Bolt, Ice Storm, Wall of Fire, Cone of Cold, Conjure Elemental. In addition, you gain resistance to lightning damage, so it's halved. This is great because a lot of people start casting Lightning Bolt at higher levels. You get a bonus cantrip, and then your Channel Divinity causes 1d8 lightning damage to a target, and then they can also be stunned. Now, at level 6, you can use your reaction to become immune to your Domain of Element, so it heals you. This is kind of nice. If you are going to get hit by a lightning bolt, it can actually heal you, which is great. And then level 8 is a really nice ability where you do an AoE, and if they fail a con save, they take 2d8 plus your wisdom and damage, and they become restrained. And you can use this a number of times equal to your wisdom bonus, so up to 5 times depending on how high your wisdom is. So that's why this cleric comes in pretty high. Now, ice is very similar. It's just instead of resistance to lightning, you get resistance to cold. You get Ray of Frost as your bonus cantrip. Their Channel Divinity is a little bit different. It does cold damage and pushes away. But then when you get to their level 8 ability, it's very similar. You can do a cold damage or they can be restrained. It's a strength save. And then you can cast a number of times up to your wisdom. And then when you get to the elemental fire, again, same spells except for your resistance to fire damage. And you get Firebolt as your cantrip. You do an AoE 3d8 fire damage as your Channel Divinity, and then your Call Upon Fire, your level 8. Target suffers fire damage and must succeed a strength saving throw or be pushed, and this can be used a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier. So fire does way more, does a little bit more damage. Ice is a little bit in the middle, and then you have lightning. I would say of the 3, this is why I've ranked them 7, and then ice is 8, and then fire is 9. It just depended on what you're fighting and if you really want those types of resistances and whatnot. I feel other subclasses are stronger. And then coming at number 10 is the Insights Cleric. This is one of those subclasses that I feel is just like, hey, it's great in tabletop, but when you actually put it into a video game, it doesn't make a lot of sense. You get very crappy spells. Advantage on some of these things, not great. You know, you can dodge an enemy's attack for 1 minute, could be okay. Detect traps and stuff. Speak all languages. It just is not a great subclass for a video game, much more for a RPG tabletop game, which is why it's number 10. All right, diving into the Druid subclass. So this is probably one of my favorite classes in Solasta. They just have such utility. But going from best to worst on subclass rank is at level 2, we're going to probably pick up Circle of Balance as number 1. Now you have to own the Lost Valley DLC to have this one. You get some great healing spells: Prayer of Healing, Mass Healing Word, Revivify, Banishment, Blight, Mass Cure Wounds, Cloud Kill. But what makes this one superior is the Gift of Life. Whenever you use a level 1 or higher spell to restore hit points, they regain an additional number of hit points equal to your level at the start of your next turn. So pretty much at the start of your next turn, or their next turn I should say, they gain hit points. So this is so strong because if they get knocked unconscious and it becomes their turn, they heal and stand back up from unconscious. That's what makes this subclass so strong. Level 6 is pretty nice ability where you gain bonus equal to half your knowledge as damage to things you've already fought before. And then level 10, the Cold Embrace. When you damage your opponent with a spell, they're unable to heal any hit points until the start of your next turn. There's very few creatures in Solasta that has a healing or a regeneration, so not a huge thing. It's really this Gift of Life that makes it number 1. Coming at number 2 is Circle of Land. This is also one of those subclasses from the SRD. You probably know how good this is. Very similar to a wizard. You get the ability to gain spell slots back. Depending on which of the different terrains you pick, you get different spells, which are fantastic. I think it's Desert. That is my favorite one to go with. And then you gain extra movement when you're in things such as Entangled and Spike Growth don't hurt you. So this is almost so beautiful when you're fighting against NPCs that are stupid and their AI is dumb, is you can basically put down Spike Growth, run through it, be fine, and then they run through it and they just die trying to chase you. So you can do a lot of shenanigans with this ability along with your Spike Growth. And then the Natural Wind is just okay. Coming in at number 3, we're going to go with the Kindred Spirit. Now this basically turns you into a not so great Beastmaster Ranger. So you choose a spirit to bond to and it grants you a bonus. Use your action to call upon your Kindred Spirit, and then it basically is a pet that you can use. It gains certain bonuses, attack and saving based on what your stuff is. It has advantage on attacks of enemies engaged with the Druid, so very similar to like if you cast a Familiar and you get advantage on attack rolls, that kind of thing. But the reason why this is not ranked higher is that pet doesn't scale well. And secondly, if your pet dies, you sustain 3d6 psychic damage and are stunned for the remainder of the turn. This sucks. Your pet, as you get higher levels, will take 1 or 2 hits and die, and now you are stunned and you take damage. This is what makes this subclass so bad, and that's why I don't recommend using it. And then at level 6, your pet gets the magic. It can, its attacks are magical. And then when you heal yourself, you can heal your pet kind of thing. And then at level 10 as a reaction, you can split the damage between you and your pet. But ultimately, the hardest thing with this one is you're going to be spending a lot of time healing your pet to keep it up. And if you happen to run into something that can one-shot or two-hit it, you're going to be stunned, which is why this is not a higher subclass. The last Circle Winds. This reminds me of the Insight Cleric. The wind helps you disengage as a free action. You get some extra movement. Your allies can be sheltered in a breeze at level 6. Advantage on saving throws. And then there's like whenever an enemy hits you with an attack roll, the next attack roll against them before the end of your turn has advantage. Just not as strong as the other subclasses in a video game setting. So that is the Druid. Let's get to the Fighter. So the Fighter has 4 subclasses. We're going to start number 1 is going to be the Spellblade. Now the Spellblade is very similar to the Fighter subclass in 5th edition where you can cast spells. I think it's the Eldritch Knight or whatever. So you can cast wizard spells, and also your weapons attack count as magical weapons. This is fantastic. And then at level 7, you can use melee weapons you're proficient with as a spellcasting focus. So that is really great to have, and being next to a hostile creature does not impose disadvantage if you're trying to cast a ranged spell. Then at level 10, you get Spell Tyrant, target a creature and move it 1 cell in any direction. Not a great ability. The reason why the Spellblade is so strong for a fighter is you get wizard spells like Expeditious Retreat, Misty Step, Hold Person. These are all super strong spells for a fighter. You cast Hold Person on something, all your attacks are now crits if they're paralyzed. If you need to get somewhere, you bonus action Expeditious Retreat, and then you can bonus action Dash so you can cover the battlefield and get to creatures and you're not stuck using ranged weapons. All super amazing, which makes this class number 1 in my book. Number 2 coming in, I would probably say, is the Commander, which is the subclass from the DLC. You gain proficiency in Intimidation, but here's where it gets good. You can use your bonus action to give all allies within 3 cells of you advantage on their next attack until the start of your next turn. You can use this power a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and then you recover at a short rest. So you can pretty much be giving out advantage to your allies, including yourself, which is really going to be helpful, especially if you have something, you know, that is paralyzed and you definitely want to crit them. You want to make sure you hit those types of things. And then Coordinated Defense, when you use your attack action, you can forego one of your attacks to grant an ally within 3 cells dodge. Kind of nice to have to save that guy, especially your healer, that they're going to die, and you just saved them by doing that. And then lastly, you get Invigorating Shout, which the range increases and just makes your Rousing Shout a little bit better. Now coming in at number 3 on this list is going to be the Champion subclass. This is the one from the SRD. You just gain crits on 19s instead of 20s. You gain an extra fighting style at level 10, and you can use your proficiency bonus on certain things, which isn't a big deal. What makes this one so strong is the extra crits. You're critting more at a 19 instead of just a 20. You go with a half orc who gets extra damage on crits. This is actually a pretty strong subclass. And then finally, the Mountaineer. This is that subclass that you get advantage on shoves with shields, but you're really, if you want to be a sword and board, this is a great subclass. You gain a +8 2 AC when there's at least 1 wall on one of your 4 sides, which isn't always going to happen. And then the close quarters, being able to switch positions with enemies is okay, but it's not something that's going to make or break you. And then being able to do shove as a bonus action doesn't come on until level 10. So being able to knock people down so you can get advantage on attacks, not coming on until level 10. I just feel like there's other subclasses that you can do that are better than this, which is why it comes in at number 4. Okay, let's move on to the Paladin. So with the Paladin, the 4 subclasses you get at level 3 are the Oath of Devotion, Oath of the Motherland, Oath of Tirmar, Oath of Judgment. Oath of Devotion being the subclass that comes from the SRD. And if we were going to rank them, I think the first thing we're going to do is we're probably going to start with the Oath of Judgment as the number 1 pick. The reason why I go with Oath of Judgment is, again, they have some really good starting spells. Hold Person, Haste, Hypnotic Pattern, Guiding Bolt. As a bonus action, you can pour your determination to your weapon. Next time you hit a creature with a melee weapon attack, they must make a charisma saving throw or be restrained, which gives you advantages on all your attacks, which is great. And then you constantly emit a 2-cell wide aura that, while not incapacitated, allies, including yourself, will add damage equal to your proficiency bonus. So you're basically providing an additional 2 to 4 damage for everybody around you in your aura, which is really nice to have. So with their spell choices and some of their Channel Divinity plus their level 7 ability, that's why I have them coming in at number 1. Coming in number 2, we have Tirmar. I like this subclass as well, due again to the options you get to choose for your spells. So Sleep is great because you can pretty much make something to where you can get crits on it. Shield's nice to have, especially if you're about to take a really big hit. You can always use a spell to cast Shield. Hold Person is great. Blindness, Daylight, Slow, all great spells. Channel Divinity, gain advantage on Persuasion, Intimidation checks. This is going to be good. There are some fights in the game that if you can get out of the fight, it's actually very, very good. So that's why I kind of like this subclass as well in the number 2. And then your Channel Divinity adds 1d6 additional radiant damage to an attack, which hits the opponent with either natural shapeshifting or dark vision. The effect lasts for 1 minute. So there's a lot of creatures in the game that have dark vision, and there's some that can shapeshift. So getting that extra damage on those creatures is also kind of nice. And then you also get an aura gaining superior dark vision and +2 perception. That's not really all that good. The reason why this is ranked number 2 is solely because of the spell choices and your channel divinity. Now, coming in number 3 is the Oath of Devotion. So this is the one that matches the SRD. You know, you get shield again, you get a little bit of an aid, some revivify. So there's some decent spells here. You bless one weapon for a minute, and when you hit with that weapon, the weapon is also, you add your charisma modifier to it, so you get a little extra damage. And it also emits a bright light over 4 cells and dim light, and it counts as magical. So that's actually a really nice to have to get at level 3 what is basically a magic weapon. But I don't think their spell choices are nearly as good as the other two, and that's why I have them ranked a little bit lower. Also, you have the ability to force fiends and undead within 6 cells you can see to flee unless they make a successful wisdom saving throw. This will also help you a little bit in some of the fights because there are going to be some undead and fiends, so just keep that in mind. And then another friendly aura where you can't be charmed, which is not a huge deal. No one casts charm in this game. And then lastly, probably the worst subclass in mine is going to be the Motherland. It just depends on your preference. These spells are more fire-based, like Burning Hand, Branding Smite, Scorching Ray, Fireball, Dispel Magic. You can argue that having Fireball at level 9 would be pretty nice, but I feel you're going to have probably a wizard or something that can cast Fireball, so you're probably not going to choose this. Maybe you are. Maybe you're going to have a bunch of melees and you want a guy who can cast Fireball. So I rank this at number 4. Channel Divinity, you get a 2d6 plus your pally level fire damage, and setting the target on fire. It can make a DC 10 dexterity check to put it out, or sustain 1d6 more fire damage per turn for a minute. Most people are going to make that check and put it out. Just FYI, 2d6 plus whatever is a pretty decent damage, low levels, but it doesn't really scale. And then when you get to the ability where you can blind your targets, that's also going to be kind of a nice ability to do. And then you gain fire resistance +1 AC to friendly creatures. So I put this one fourth solely because of their spell choices. I think that having the different spell choices where you can get the shields and the hold persons and those types of abilities just make those subclasses stronger. Channel Divinity you can usually use once or twice before a long rest, which makes it not as strong. And that's why I think these are in the order I put them in. All right, moving on. Going to the Ranger. So the Ranger has 4 archetypes. You'll see that they get their subclasses at level 3. Hunter, Marksman, Shadow Tamer, Swiftblade. Hunter is going to be what's coming from the SRD that you're probably used to seeing. And then the Swiftblade is going to be our Lost DLC subclass. Now, ranking these from best to worst, I actually put the Swiftblade at number 1. And I just think that this is a ridiculously good subclass. The reason why is when you hit level 3, you're going to get 2 additional speed. So you're going to be able to move 8 instead of 6. So depending on which race you pick. So 40 feet, pretty much. To 45 feet. Yeah, 40 feet. When you use your dash action, opportunity attacks against you are made with disadvantage. So that's kind of nice. And then when you're wielding a melee weapon in each hand, you gain a +2 bonus to AC. So this is really a good subclass if you're going to do a nice dual wield kind of thing. If you're going archer or whatnot, obviously you're going to pick a different subclass. Now, at level 7, this is where it gets really good. As a free action, you can enter a heightened state, and all your melee weapon attacks deal an additional 2d8 weapon damage of the weapon damage type until your next turn. You need to take a long rest to recover all uses of this power. Now, I think when you get to a little higher up, you get 4 uses of battle focus. So if you are getting 2 attacks and a bonus action attack because you're dual wielding, all 3 of those attacks are going to get an additional 2d8 weapon damage. So you're doing your weapon damage plus an additional 2d8, and there's a good chance you probably Hunter's Marked something. So with your 1d6 from your Hunter's Mark and all of this, you're going to be doing some massive damage to targets. This is a really, really strong subclass for that. And then at level 11, you get an extra attack, so now you're going to be attacking 3 times, plus a bonus action attack, so 4 attacks that you can add this 2d8 to every single one of those attacks, plus your Hunter's Mark damage. So this is just a really, really strong subclass, which is why it's number 1. Now, I have Hunter number 2, and I've always liked the Hunter subclass, even in 5th edition D&D. I think the reason why a lot of people don't like the Ranger is because they're not as good as some of the other classes. But I love the Colossus Slayer, Giant Killer, or Horde Breaker. I think in Solasta, Horde Breakers are really good one to pick because you can, every time you kill something, you can then attack something else and kill that. And so it's really nice to be able to like take out a lot of mobs if you have a lot of small mobs, which you get a lot of encounters like that. And then having the multi-attack defense is always great. Escape the Horde or Steel Will. And then at level 11, if you're going bow user, I probably wouldn't do the volley. I think it's not as good. But if you're going with two-handed swords or weapon, whirlwind attack is actually pretty darn good at level 11. Then coming in at number 3, we are probably going to go with our good friend, the Marksman. So the Marksman is obviously going to be the one that you want to pick if you want to be a ranged ranger. Okay. When a visible opponent 2 cells or more from you attack you with a ranged weapon or a spell, you can use your reaction to take a shot after triggering the attack. So pretty much anytime something tries to hit you with ranged that you can see, you get a free attack on them, which is really nice. And then at level 7, it gives you the ability to get out of melee range. As a bonus action, you move 1 cell without provoking an opportunity attack and gain advantage on your next attack. So basically, you use your bonus action, you disengage, and then now you can fire at advantage on whatever you're firing at. So as a bow user, this is a really good subclass. Then at level 11, you get to fast aim. If you're using a ranged weapon against an enemy, your bonus action can be used to make an additional ranged attack on that same target. So it just gives you an extra attack, so you can do 3 bow attacks instead of just 2, because now you can use your bonus action to do another attack. So strong subclass if you're going to be a bow user, but I still don't think it's as good as the Swiftblade or the Hunter. And then last, we come in at the Shadow Tamer. So this one, when you're in dim light or darkness, you gain advantage on dexterity saving throws. When you attack a creature with superior dark vision, you add your proficiency bonus, and then target a creature and attempt to pull it. And while in dim or dark, you have advantage on stealth, perception, etc. And then 11, whenever an opponent attacks you from a nearby cell, you're granted an immediate melee attack against that opponent. So you get a retaliation similar to the Marksman. You get the ability to do a little extra from 2 to 4, depending on your proficiency bonus, damage to things that have superior dark vision. It just is not as strong as the Marksman, the Hunter, or the Swiftblade. Now let's get to the Rogue subclasses. So the Rogue subclasses, we got the Thief, the Dark Wheeler, the Shadowcaster, and the Hoodlum. The Thief is the one that comes from the SRD. The Hoodlum is the new one from the Lost Valley. If I were to rank them, I had a hard time between Shadowcaster and Hoodlum, but I ended up picking Hoodlum as my number 1 choice here. And the reason I went with Hoodlum as my number 1 choice is you at level 3, when you get your subclass, you gain the proficiency with martial weapons, medium armor, and shields. So normally you can only use leather armor. And normally you can only use simple weapons, depending on which race you pick or subclass or background. You can use different ones. So this gives you the ability to wear medium armor, which is fantastic, and a shield. So technically you can do a one-hander and a shield and still get your sneak attack damage. And then heavy beating, you can now use sneak attack when using non-finesse melee weapons. So that is what makes this strong, is you could have a longsword and do sneak attack. Or if you don't want to go shield, you could be swinging around with your giant great axe and getting sneak attack on it. So it's just really nice because it kind of turns your rogue into a more tanky rogue, so you can kind of get into range easier and get sneak attacks and use higher damage weapons to get those sneak attacks, which I really, really enjoy. And then at level 9, when you hit an enemy with a sneak attack, they have disadvantage on attacks made against you until the start of your next turn. So once you hit level 9, if you are doing damage to them, then they have disadvantage attacking you back, which is going to be really nice. It pretty much turns you into that upfront rogue, which is kind of cool. Then coming in at number 2, we're going to go the Shadowcaster. The Shadowcaster is very similar to the Arcane Trickster, where you can cast wizard spells, and then you also, at level 3, you get a bonus action teleport to a cell you can see within 5 feet. 5 cells, recharges after a rest. So this is kind of nice. This is like a free Misty Step if you want to get out of things or get into things, either way. And then if you are targeted by a damaging spell, whether it damages you or not, you can cast a cantrip in reaction to the caster. So you can use a firebolt as a reaction to getting any kind of damage or non-damage. As long as someone is targeting you with it, you get this reaction whether they hit you or not. But really makes this subclass really good are you get the wizard spells, Divination, Illusion, Necromancy, and Abjuration. And so you can pick up a lot of really good spells that are going to help you with your rogue class, which is why I like this subclass so much. Then coming in at number 3, we are going to go with the Dark Weaver. So the Dark Weaver really pretty much makes climbing very easy. You can climb up on things. And then when hitting an enemy on lower ground with a ranged weapon, you add your proficiency bonus to the damage. So there's a lot of times where you can position yourself to be higher and get that extra damage. But other than that, there's not a lot of great things with this. You can climb up somewhere higher, and then you can do extra damage from there. Then at level 6, when you hit with a melee weapon, you deal at least 1 point of damage. Your target must make a con save, or they will be poisoned for 1 hour and take an additional 2.6 damage. So that's pretty strong if you're a melee build. It doesn't work on ranged attacks. This one definitely doesn't live up to the Shadowcaster and Hoodlum. That's why it's coming in at number 3. And then the Thief. The Thief is very similar to the Dark Weaver, where you can climb with no extra cost. The only real benefit you get to the Thief is going to be Fast Hands, which allows you to use an item or an object as a cunning action. So this is really good because as your bonus action, you can actually drink a potion and still do an attack, where every other class and subclass, only way you can drink a potion is actually using your action, which makes this subclass a little bit good if you need to drink a potion or cast a spell scroll or do something. But I just don't think that ability to use an object is really going to benefit you all that much, even using a magical item, compared to the other subclasses. So let's move on to the Sorcerer. So the Sorcerer, we got the Draconic Bloodline, Mana Painter, Child of the Wrist, Haunted Soul. The Draconic Bloodline is what comes from the SRD. And, ranking these, I think I'm going to go with the Haunted Soul first. The level 1 Inflict Wounds spell, depending on how you build your Sorcerer, being able to get up close and cast Inflict Wounds, it's going to do a lot of damage at level 1. Fear is really nice. Mind Twist is great. It's really one of the strongest higher level spells in the game, in my opinion. It not only does it incapacitate creatures, but it's an AoE around you, and it only hits negative or hostile creatures. So it's a really nice spell to have. But then you get Spirit Visage. So you get all this at level 1 as a sorcerer. As a bonus action, you can attempt to scare an enemy that you can see within 6 cells of you. The target must make a wisdom saving throw, or they have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls until the start of the next turn. So that's kind of nice to do as a bonus action every turn. And then at level 6 is where it gets good. You get a Vengeful Spirit. You can use bonus action to call forth your spirit for up to 1 minute. You can target a 3d3 cell area that you can see within 18 cells, and any opponent that enters that area for the first time on their turn or starts their turn, they must make a charisma saving throw or take 2d6 plus your charisma modifier in necrotic damage. And then each turn, you can use your bonus action to move it. Once you use it, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest, or if you spend 4 sorcery points to use it again. So this reminds me a little bit of a Spirit Guardians that you can move around the battlefield and have do damage. And you gain 1 sorcery point every level. So by level 12, you have 12 sorcery points. So you can basically recast this thing 3 times. It's just a really strong spell. And then you can see Recharge Vengeful Spirit, spend 4 sorcery points to recharge your Vengeful Spirit power. I think if you could do this 3 times a fight, or 1 time a fight, or 2 times a fight, doing that 2d6 plus your charisma modifier, which is probably going to be 5 damage, and moving it around the battlefield is going to be really, really nice. That's why this comes in at number 1. Now, number 2, we're going with Child of the Rift. So this is Guiding Bolt is a really strong level 1 spell. Aid is nice. Daylight, Banishment, Greater Restoration. So all these spells up until Greater Restoration are really nice spells to have. Immediately after you cast a Sorc spell of level 1 to 5, roll a d20. If you roll a 20, your spell slot is not spent. So just having the ability to get your spell slots back is always something really nice to have, and that's why I really like this subclass. Then at level 2, you can use your bonus action and spend a Sorc point to become harder to hit and achieving better saving throws until the start of your next turn. This is a really nice to have if you are a sorcerer, And so, like I said, as you get higher up, you're going to have a lot more Sorc points to play with, and I think this is really going to save your butt in certain instances, especially on higher difficulties. And then at level 6, you can use your bonus action to sacrifice 5 hit points in order to regain immediately 1 Sorc point. The sacrifice hit points are recovered after a long rest. And so this one, you can kind of play with it. If you pick a class and a race that has a lot of Constitution, and you really build Constitution, like a hill dwarf or whatnot, you can really get a good pool of hit points, and this will almost grant you more and more sorcery points where you don't ever run out of them, which is really nice to have that ability to regenerate those Sorc points. Whoops. Then we're going to get to my third choice, which is going to be the good old standard Draconic Bloodline. This is a really strong subclass. I love the shield spell, Misty Step, Counter Spell, Greater Invis, Hold Monster. Like, all their spell choices are really great. And I probably would have put this one higher up. There's just some of the benefits of the Child of the Rift and Haunted Soul were just a little bit better. But I do like this because you can speak Draconic. You also get to choose a Dragon type and have an associated Breath weapon. You get the Draconic Resilience, so your AC is going to be 13 plus your Dex, so up to 18 AC while not wearing armor. And then at level 6, when dealing spell damage matching your Draconic Ancestry, you add your Charisma modifier to the total. So if you go fire and you cast a lot of Fireball, then you're going to get additional damage. And then you also gain resistances to that type for an hour at the cost of 1 Sorc point. So I feel like you can do more with Sorc points with the Child of the Rift and Haunted Soul. That's why this one comes in at number 3, but it probably has the best spell list of all 4 subclasses. And then the final one is going to be the Mana Painter. So this one, Entangle Barkskin, not really that great. Sleet Storm, not that great. Fire Shield, not that great. And then Conjure Elemental is actually a pretty decent spell. And then your Charisma modifier is used instead of other ability modifiers on your saving throws against spells and other magic effects. This is really nice, similar to the Barbarian that uses its con save. Using your Charisma modifier is going to help save on a lot of things. And then at level 2, you make a melee spell attack on a successful hit. The target creature takes a 1d10 plus your Charisma mod force damage, and you gain a Sorc point. You need to take a short rest to recover this power. So this is kind of nice, but you can only do it once before a short rest, and it does 1d10, maybe plus 5 damage, and you get a Sorc point back. I just don't see why it doesn't scale better. And then at level 6, when you finish your short rest, you can regain a number of Sorc points equal to half your Sorc level. You must complete a long rest to do this again. So this is very similar to the Wizard or the Land Druid, where you can gain back spell slots, but instead you're gaining back sorcery points, which is nice to have to do a lot of the shenanigans you can with your meta magic. All right, we are almost there. We are going for the Wizard. Now, the Wizard is the only class in Solasta that does not have a subclass from the SRD. Your options are going to be Shock Arcanist, Lore Master, Green Mage, and Court Mage. And you get your subclass at level 2 as a Wizard. Now, similar to the Swiftblade on the Ranger, I feel like the Court Mage that came with the Lost Valley DLC is by far the strongest subclass in the Wizard. And here is why. So you gain proficiency with shields, and you gain the Protection Fighting Style, which allows you to use your reaction to impose disadvantage on attack rolls made against an ally next to you. So if you think about it, you can put a shield on, get 2 additional AC, and on top of that, you can cause disadvantage on stuff that's attacking the person next to you. Then you can use your action to create a powerful shield around yourself and an ally you can see within 6 cells, and it grants both of you temp hit points equal to 5 times your level for an hour. And you can do this twice before a long rest. So think about it. If you're level 12, you can give you and another person in your 4-person party 60 temporary hit points. And you can do it twice, so 120 temporary hit points. This is so brokenly strong, it's not even funny. Then, at level 6, you get Counterspell Mastery. So you gain advantage on your spellcasting checks when casting Counterspell against level 4 or higher. In addition, enemies have disadvantage on their spellcasting checks when casting Counterspell against you. So you can counterspell stuff more often, and they can't counterspell you as much. It's a great spell. It's a great ability to have. And then at level 10, when you cast that spell shield, not only do they get the effects of it, they also gain advantage on all saving throws against spells and magic effects. And even if your shield goes to 0, then it can absorb, but magic still remains. So even though you don't have a shield left, you still get the effects of the saving throws. If you partner this subclass with the background that allows you to wear medium armor, then you can get this class up to I think a 20 AC if I do the math correctly, or maybe it's like an 18 AC, depending on what kind of shield you have. And then you can cast shield spell on top of it. So your wizard is actually going to be more tanky than probably your tank is. So keep that in mind. That's why this is a number 1 subclass. Number 2, this is a tough one. When I chose the number 2, I went with the Lore Master. And the reason I went with the Lore Master is the advantage to copy spells in your spellbook, and scrolls and potion cost half. And in addition, you learn an additional spell each time you gain a level. And then at the end, you can add your proficiency bonus to the number of spells you can memorize. So the reason why I have this one coming in so high is you can learn so many spells that you can't really do with the other subclasses, where you have to really choose which 2 spells you want to pick. Where with the Lore Master, you can just scribe them all into your spellbook and have tons of different options and be able to memorize so many. And it just makes it where you pretty much have a spell for everything that's going to be thrown at you, which is why I rank this subclass so high. Coming at number 3 is the Shock Arcanist, which a lot of people are going to like. Basically, if you're casting spells that do damage, it's going to give you more damage on those spells. So when you cast a spell from the war list, they count as being cast as 1 slot higher than they actually are. So if you cast Magic Missile, you're actually going to cast Magic Missile at level 2, then it's actually going to be at level 3. You cast at level 1, it's actually going to do damage at level 2. So when it comes to damage dealing, this subclass is by far super strong. Then at level 6, you can add your proficiency bonus and int bonus to your evocation spell damage for 1 minute. So this basically supercharges you. So if you're in a fight where you know it's going to be a long fight, you pop this baby on, and then you're adding anywhere from, let's just be frank, your intel is probably going to be a +3 at the minimum. So from 5 to anywhere from 9. So anywhere to 5 to 9 extra damage on all your evocation spells for 1 minute. That's really going to add up. And then at level 10, you get Arcane Shock. You overcharge your mana and become restrained until the end of your turn. However, when you cast an attack spell, your damage dice are always above average in return. You make a con saving throw and take 2d6 physic damage if you fail. So you pretty much are overcharged to where every time you do damage, you're going to always do at least the minimum, the middle ground damage, right? They're always going to be average on the dice or higher. But there's a chance you're going to keep taking 2d6 psychic damage if you don't pass your con saving throw. So I'd like this because this is like, oh man, I really got to finish off this boss. So I'm going to go hog wild, but I'm going to start taking damage because of it. And then last, number 4 is going to be the Green Mage. The reason why the Green Mage is so low on this list is this subclass actually was created before the Druid class is available. If you don't have the Primal Calling DLC, then this is probably a fun class to play. But with the addition of the Druid, the spells that they get aren't as good as the spells the Druid get. And then having the ability to craft arrows and bows, and then having an archery fighting style and a short bow, it just kind of feels weird, like you're going to be using your bow when I feel like your cantrip does way more damage. And then you can use light armor versus regular, but you can pick a background that gives you medium armor. So everything about this class is just not great. I think it might have been fun to pretend to be a Druid before the Druid came out, but now that the Druid class exists, this is just a terrible subclass. Whew. All right, that is all the subclasses for all 9 classes. Hope you enjoyed this ranking and explanation of the different subclasses and why I picked them. I am sure that there are classes I don't play that often where I rank the subclasses different. Love to hear what you guys have to say. Post it in the comments below, and I'll try and answer all the comments as they come in. I really appreciate you guys watching. This is Van from the VaniverseGaming channel. Thanks for staying with this video for as long as it is, and we will catch you in the next video. Cheers and peace out.